Hello guys. Nick Saban would never have lost this game. Finebaum said. Did you see it? Before the news, subscribe to the channel to continue receiving Bama news. The Alabama Crimson Tide's recent loss to Vanderbilt brought a wave of dissatisfaction among fans, reigniting the debate over the team's leadership change. The team, under the command of Kalen DeBoer, faced a series of criticisms after a result that, for many, seemed unacceptable. Vanderbilt, an opponent that Alabama had beaten 23 consecutive times, achieved a historic victory, breaking a streak that dates back to 1936 and marking the first time they had beaten a team ranked in the top 5 by the AP. This unexpected loss put Kalen DeBoer's philosophy under the spotlight, especially considering the legacy left by Nick Saban. Saban, widely considered one of the greatest coaches in college football history, set an extremely high standard at Alabama, winning multiple national titles. So it's no surprise that many fans, including insiders like Austin Randolph, are already clamoring for the iconic coach's return. Randolph took to Twitter to express his displeasure, stating, "Nobody's happy." He highlighted the nearly universal desire to have Saban back in charge, recalling one of his famous quotes, "Never waste a failure." Randolph's critics, however, weren't the only voice echoing this sentiment. Renowned sports analyst Paul Finebaum also pointed out the differences in DeBoer's and Saban's styles, suggesting that the legendary coach would never have allowed such an upsetting defeat. While that comparison may seem harsh, especially considering the new administration is still finding its stride, the statistics from the game reinforce the concerns. Alabama gave up 418 yards to Vanderbilt and, perhaps more concerning, failed to bring down opposing quarterback Diego Pavia even once during the game. This aligns with the observation of Crimson Tide defensive coordinator Kane Womack, who acknowledged the defense's lack of intensity and consistency, admitting that the team didn't execute as it should. Despite the defensive struggles, Alabama's offense had its moments of brilliance. In just 18 minutes of possession, the team managed to score 35 points and 312 yards against Vanderbilt's defense. Jalen Milroe, who many believe to be a potential Heisman candidate this season, racked up 312 yards but struggled to convert those opportunities into touchdowns, scoring just one. In contrast, Vanderbilt quarterback Pavia had a remarkable performance, completing 16 of 20 passes and rushing for 252 yards with 2 touchdowns. This contrast in efficiency between the quarterbacks made it clear that, despite the impressive numbers, Alabama has a lot of work to do to return to its standard of excellence. Kalen DeBoer, however, maintained a firm and confident stance after the game. He acknowledged the challenges the team faced, but also made it clear that the Crimson Tide is still in the process of evolution. "We know we're a work in progress, not a finished product by any means, and that showed on Saturday," DeBoer said, demonstrating his commitment to correcting mistakes and focusing on the future. While the loss was a tough blow, the coach's long-term vision could be the key to getting Alabama back on track. For fans, however, patience doesn't seem to be an easy virtue to practice. Accustomed to dominance under Nick Saban, any slip-up is magnified, and the pressure on DeBoer only increases. The new coach's challenge is clear: to fine-tune the defense, improve the consistency of the offense and, above all, keep the Crimson Tide among the elite of college football. The season still offers plenty of opportunities for recovery, but as always, time will be the true test of his leadership and ability to keep Alabama on top. In the meantime, the next game will be crucial. After a disappointing performance, Alabama will have to show resilience and prove that this loss was just a blip, not a sign of a larger decline. For Kalen DeBoer, this is a chance to solidify his position and earn the trust of a fan base that, while demanding, recognizes greatness when it sees it. The road to redemption is ahead, and the Crimson Tide still has time to regain its football preeminence. And there's more. The recent incident involving Malachi Moore during the Alabama Crimson Tide Vanderbilt Commodores game drew attention not only for the player's unusual behavior on the field, but also for the way coach Kalen DeBoer handled the situation publicly. Moore, a veteran and team captain, was seen in a scene of evident frustration at the end of the game, yelling and kicking the ball after a referee's call, refusing to leave the field when asked by Alabama. This tense moment could easily have been handled with a public reprimand or a stern speech, but DeBoer, in his post-game press conference, chose a more compassionate and understanding approach. He emphasized that Moore, although he acted inappropriately, was completely dedicated to the team and that his frustration was a reflection of his passion for the game. "The guy puts everything into what he does," DeBoer said, noting that while the behavior was not acceptable, he understood that his reaction came from a place of deep frustration. For many, this response was seen as a display of thoughtful leadership, showing that DeBoer is not only interested in immediate results, but also in the well-being and emotional development of his players. However, not everyone was pleased with this approach. SEC Network analyst Paul Finebaum, known for his blunt opinions, was openly critical of DeBoer's handling of the situation. On his show, Finebaum said he was shocked by what he called the coach's passive approach, even calling the response demeaning to Alabama. Finebaum, for his part, expected a more firm and disciplined approach, something he saw as essential to maintaining the level of excellence expected of the Crimson Tide. This clash of views reflects one of the greatest challenges any elite coach faces: balancing discipline and emotional support in the high-pressure environment of college football. DeBoer, by publicly supporting his player and dealing with the incident internally, has demonstrated a more humane and approachable approach to his players, something that could be crucial to the team's long-term development. He reiterated that stance in his weekly press conference, where he reiterated that Moore took full responsibility for his actions and that the team had already resolved the matter internally. Moore is not expected to be suspended at this time, and he will likely be on the field for the upcoming game against South Carolina. For fans and analysts, however, the central question remains how Alabama will deal with these emotional and disciplinary challenges as the season progresses. The legacy left by Nick Saban, where rigid discipline and unwavering focus were hallmarks, creates an inescapable parallel to the DeBoer era. By opting for a more empathetic approach in moments of crisis, DeBoer is slowly forging his own identity as the Crimson Tide coach, one who seeks to balance excellence on the field with human support off it. The upcoming game against South Carolina will be crucial, not only to reaffirm Alabama's competitive strength, but also to test the team's ability to overcome adversity and emotional stress. DeBoer, despite the criticism, seems confident in his leadership and his ability to motivate the team to move forward after difficult moments. For Alabama, the season is far from over, but the path forward will certainly depend on DeBoer's ability to keep the group united and focused, even when the circumstances are adverse. The incident with Malachi Moore is a reminder that in sports, emotions run high, and passion and frustration can often mix in unpredictable ways. However, with DeBoer's leadership, the Crimson Tide has the chance to turn these challenges into opportunities for growth and, who knows, move toward another memorable season. Time will tell if this more compassionate approach will be the key to Alabama's continued success, but for now, DeBoer seems determined to support his players, even in their most difficult moments. Reflecting on the case, Kalen DeBoer's decision not to suspend Malachi Moore following the events of the Alabama-Vanderbilt game has drawn mixed reactions from both inside and outside the team. Moore's behavior in the final minutes of the game, including a late hit, and unsportsmanlike conduct for kicking a ball and refusing to leave the field, was widely criticized. However, by opting to keep the senior safety on the field for the upcoming game against South Carolina, DeBoer has demonstrated a more measured approach, given Moore's history of loyalty and good behavior over the years. It's important to note that DeBoer is not giving Moore a free pass. Both he and defensive coordinator Kane Womack have emphasized that the player is being held accountable for his actions, though the details of this internal discipline remain private, as is common in college football. Nick Saban, the legendary former Alabama coach, has often chosen to handle disciplinary matters internally, except when a suspension was made evident by a player's absence. The Moore incident was publicly condemned, especially for someone with his status on the team. As a captain and one of the most experienced leaders on the team, his outburst of frustration stood out in a negative light, leading even former players like Damian Harris to criticize both the player's behavior and DeBoer's decision to keep him on the team. It shed light on a dilemma any coach faces: balancing discipline with supporting a player. DeBoer, in justifying his decision, pointed to Moore's character and loyalty to the program since he took over as the Crimson Tide's coach. He acknowledged that Moore's actions were unacceptable, but emphasized the importance of also supporting a player through difficult times. That doesn't make some of his actions right by any means, DeBoer acknowledged, but there comes a point where you have to support your guy. This approach could be seen as an attempt to keep the group together in a time of pressure. Moore, as a leader in the locker room, has a history of setting an example for his teammates up to this point. Suspending a player with such a history could, perhaps, send a message of distrust to the rest of the roster. However, it is undeniable that by keeping Moore on the field, DeBoer risks being seen as complacent about inappropriate behavior. On the other hand, supporting a veteran player can be key to strengthening the bonds within the team, especially in a season of transition. Alabama is under the spotlight, and every decision DeBoer makes will be scrutinized. The choice not to suspend Moore also reflects an understanding that in moments of high tension, even leaders can fail, and how they are treated after such slip-ups can impact the cohesion of the group. However, there is a valid point to the criticism: leadership can sometimes mean making tough decisions, including sitting a player. Moore, as a captain, should be the example to follow in times of adversity. His behavior, on the contrary, has challenged that leadership and forced DeBoer to address an issue that goes beyond on-field performance. DeBoer's decision not to suspend Moore, therefore, should not be seen as a pass for inappropriate behavior, but rather as a reflection of his confidence in the player's record and Moore's ability to learn from his mistakes. The upcoming game will be a litmus test for that decision. If Moore responds with maturity and leadership, DeBoer's confidence will have been vindicated. If not, the decision not to suspend could be revisited as an error of judgment at a crucial time for Alabama. Either way, this situation puts DeBoer's leadership philosophy to the test in his rookie season as the Crimson Tide's coach. Maintaining discipline while supporting his players is a fine line to walk, and the outcome of that choice will be closely watched not only by fans but also by the sports media. Let's move on. Following Alabama's tough loss to Vanderbilt, defensive coordinator Kane Womack brought up two key areas where his defense desperately needs to improve: run defense and third down performance. These areas, according to Womack, were crucial to the outcome of the game, and he didn't shy away from taking responsibility for the mistakes that cost the Crimson Tide the win. The first area of focus Womack mentioned was the run defense. Vanderbilt consistently exploited this weakness throughout the game, racking up 166 yards on 54 carries, resulting in 2 touchdowns. While Womack praised some of the adjustments Alabama made during the game, he noted that the team failed to maintain the consistency needed to contain the Commodores' offense. This allowed Vanderbilt to extend its drives, tiring out the Alabama defense and controlling the pace of the game. In addition, third down defense was a critical area of concern. Alabama, which had been one of the best teams in the country at stopping opponents on third downs, allowed Vanderbilt to convert 12 of 18 attempts. For Womack, this drop in performance in crucial situations, which was also seen in previous games, such as against Georgia, seriously compromised the Crimson Tide's chances of victory. For 6 quarters there, third and fourth downs, we didn't operate at the level we're capable of, Womack acknowledged, highlighting how this inconsistency was a decisive factor in recent losses. While the numbers show a clear defensive problem, Womack was quick to point out that the responsibility for the performance falls on him as coordinator. When we can't do any of our keys to winning and we don't play with the Bama fundamentals, that ends up falling on me, he said, reinforcing his commitment to correcting these mistakes and getting the team back to its standard of excellence. For Womack, it's essential that his players are prepared not only technically but also mentally to compete at the highest level, and this lack of execution is something he's determined to address. The loss to Vanderbilt, however, was not only marked by defensive issues, but also by a controversial moment involving Captain Malachi Moore. His refusal to leave the field after an unsportsmanlike behavior drew criticism from fans and analysts alike. Womack and coach Kalen DeBoer addressed the incident, emphasizing Moore's responsibility as a captain and veteran player. Despite the incident, Moore will remain on the team, with DeBoer highlighting his loyalty and positive track record within the program. Moore, for his part, issued a public apology, acknowledging that he let the emotions of the game get the best of him and put his own interests ahead of those of the team. "I was completely out of line," he wrote, taking full responsibility for his behavior. While his record is a factor in whether he will remain with the team, Womack and DeBoer understand that Moore's leadership is now under scrutiny, and that his on-field tantrum is part of his legacy within the program. For Alabama, the pressure is on. With expectations to always compete at the highest level, every mistake is heavily scrutinized. The loss to Vanderbilt was a wake-up call for Womack and his defense, who will now have to work hard to fix what didn't work and regain the trust of the fans. With important games coming up, including a matchup against South Carolina, the team will need to demonstrate significant improvement in its weaknesses, especially in the areas that Womack highlighted. Kalen DeBoer's leadership will be tested again, not only in terms of internal discipline, but also in his ability to unite the team and restore Alabama's defensive identity. The path to recovery is clear: fix the run defense and regain control on third downs. Now, I want to hear your thoughts. Comment below.